why we're doing the live stream now while I'm in Bolivia. Actually, I'm only in Bolivia for another month, less than a month, 3 weeks, and then I'm heading over to Brazil. So I have a bunch of stuff coming up here, but today is about Peru. So let me go through some of the comments that I see. You guys are giving some comments now. I'm going to move up the microphone a little bit. If it's not loud enough, maybe. Let me know if it's too loud enough. I think I'm getting the audio down, possibly, or not. I don't know. Still trying to get that part understood. So before we started at 5, so 3 hours ago, we have a comment. Peru will bring your 5 senses out. Just tie your shoes. Sunglasses, salute, and rocket. Okay. Well, thanks for commenting, JC Torres. James Rocas. No sound. Oh, yeah. That was about 7 minutes ago. I hope you guys can hear me. Let me know if the sound is okay now. Hello. I am learning about Ecuador. Well, Rory, you're not going to hear much about Ecuador today. Today is about Peru. Okay, so there's a lot of videos to check out on my Ecuador playlist, and if you want, I can send you the link for that. That will give you a good understanding with the people that I interviewed there, and I made a bunch of videos myself, just walking around and stuff. So, Boink 800, I got sound. All right, good. Glad everyone's listening. I see Rory again, Rory Bellamy. You have great interviews with real people. Very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Rory. Appreciate it. My Gachina's online, which is Natalie. You're going to see a lot of her today in my set of pictures that we're going to go through. So, hello, Natalie. How are you? I'll see you soon. She's flying into Bolivia tonight. Hi there from New Zealand, Natalie Childs. Hello, Natalie. Oh, Natalie and Natalie. Back to back. Jorge, Tarapoto, Peru. Yeah, that's a place I have not been to. Sadly, I did not at all go to the jungle, to the Peruvian jungle yet. I have been to Peru so many times, I should plan it out for my next trip. I went to the Ecuadorian jungle already, the Colombian jungle, Brazilian jungle. So, like, for me, when I think about going to Peru's jungle, I always wanted to go to quite a few places there, right? So, Iquitos, Tarapoto, and a bunch of those places. I had another friend in Pucallpa, but I haven't made it out yet. Jorge says audio is okay. Awesome. Franci Palani. I would like to know how people deal with taxes if they live there more than 183 days. I realize you're traveling around, but I plan on spending a lot of time in Lima. Well, Francie, there's a lot of things that go into that. Are you going to be working in Peru? Do you have a work permit to work there? Are you getting a digital nomad visa? Are you getting what kind of visa will you have? With a tourist permit, you won't be able to stay 183. Tourist permits have become quite difficult for Peru recently. So when I went to Peru the first time in 2009, it was they gave you a stamp, 180 days on arrival, right? Not anymore. Now they have the 90-day maximum. Then you must leave or pay the fine, which I always just leave. Some people just prefer paying the fine, but it depends on what you're doing. So we have Rory again. Joke, broma. Where does the fish keep his money? In the riverbank. Very nice. Yep, I like the joke, broma. Francie says, I'm buying an apartment. So are you getting an investor visa? So that's perhaps one of the ones you're looking at. We'll talk a bit more about visas as we continue through and as we go through what I have arranged for you guys. All right. So I'm going to bring up some of the questions and ideas and comments about Peru. And as you go, you can go ahead, just leave me any of your feedback in the chat box as we go. Okay. So let me get this. Okay. So would you retire in Peru? Would you relocate to Peru? That's kind of the big issue here. And my chat with you today is a bit more about what it's like living there, as I'm obviously not a retiree, right? I'm 37, by the way. Salud to all of you guys. This is some vino I got. Some Spanish blend I found here. Yeah, so living here as an expat, I'm from America. I'm from Minnesota. So this kind of has my perspective, right? A person looking like me that does motorcycle stuff and makes videos and works online. So a digital nomad kind of, but without the, I've never been on a digital nomad visa. I see James here says, I'm a digital nomad based in Brazil now. What is your favorite city here? Well, James, I will be arriving to Brazil in less than a month. I'll be driving into the border of Corumbá, heading straight past Campo Grande and going to Curitiba. And then I'll spend a month there, a month in Blumenau, in Santa Catarina, and then a month in Florianopolis on the way down to Uruguay. And favorite city, it's a hard one because I've spent about 3 years in Brazil already. I've lived a lot in Rio, which I think Rio is a great city, although I'm a little bit hesitant about driving in there with my bike just because of how dangerous it is for motorcycle robberies and whatnot. But when I've lived there, I never had any issues like without a bike. So I did love Rio a lot. But yeah, I think probably my favorite cities are probably Florianopolis. Yeah, Rio's pretty good. Yeah, so those are kind of my favorite ones. I did my last semester in Bahia, in Salvador da Bahia. That was a good spot. A good spot, too. Yeah, Brazil is a good spot. So I'm excited to go there. But now we're talking about Peru today. Francie says no, because I'm not paying all at once. It has to be one payment, but the amount's enough. I understand. Well, Francie, I'm gonna show in this chat today. Francie, I'll show in the chat today that there is a contact that I've actually interviewed on the channel, and he has helped a lot of people, and he's the best contact for very nuanced situations like yours. James says, cool, I'm based in Fortaleza now on the northeast. Right, yep, I've been to Fortaleza. Ceará, right? Yep, I love northern part of Brazil. It's awesome. Really good spot. That's where the southern Brazilians go up during the winter, right? Go up to the north. Boeing says, will you stay the summer in Brazil? Yes, I'll be doing the full 90 days in the visa as long as everything works out properly with me and my bike. The plan will be, 30 days, 1 month, Paraná, Curitiba, 1 month, 2 months actually in Santa Catarina, 1 in Blumenau, which is where the second biggest Oktoberfest is, the big German population there. And then Florianopolis will be the last one before I go down to Uruguay to check out Uruguay in March. Yeah. James, did you find Floripa expensive in general? Yeah, Floripa is not super cheap. You can find cheaper places depending on where you live and what you buy, but yeah, I mean, in total compared to the rest of Brazil, it's pretty expensive, yeah. Francie Paul, yep, thank you. Yep, I'll be giving you'll see the guy. I mean, his name is Bob, but I'll show a picture of him and talk about the video a bit later. We have Jeff here. This Eric guy is a cool dude. Hey, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so let's go back to my little chat with you guys and this little thing I put together, right? So, here we go. So here's my intro to Peru section. Okay, so let's move this over a little bit. Move this over. 1 second, guys. It's a bit too big. I made this on Canva, and getting the proportions correct is a bit weird. This should work out. Okay, so Peru is more than Machu Picchu, right? So I think everyone knows that, right? For people that have never been to Brazil or to Peru, we've talked so much about Brazil already. So for people that haven't been to Peru, I mean, the first time going there is Machu Picchu, Machu Picchu, Machu Picchu. I think that was what Natalie was super excited to go see. Sadly, she didn't see it when she was down with me. But yeah, Machu Picchu is the big tourist attraction there. And yeah, it seems like Natalie will be going down with her mom at some point soon. But yeah, it has a lot of things, right? Besides Machu Picchu, right? So the desert, which you can see an example of right here. On the left, this is Natalie and I at the Huacachina area, Huacachina Dunes, the desert, south of Lima. And yeah, it has the jungles and ancient history, right? Of course, the Machu Picchu part is the ancient history part. And something I wanted to include there was right here we have a picture of Stuart and I. This is when I met up with Stuart to do the interview that will be coming out soon. So we did 2 talks or 2 chats basically, and the second one is here. And this is an ancient ruin near where he's building his property, or building his business and developing his property that he bought. And I forget the exact name of it. I can find it for you guys if you want to see it. But anyways, yeah, there's a lot of cool places to see. This is an example of the big city, right? This is in the downtown of Lima. And so yeah, my question for you guys is, what's the first thing you think of when you hear Peru? Do you think of Machu Picchu? I mean, I've been going for years and years and years. Okay, I see Krauk. We have some more comments here. Which beach town do you recommend for artists? Jeff says. Are you talking about in Peru for artists? Good evening. The volume is too low. I can barely hear you. Okay, I'm going to try and turn up my volume because I thought it was possibly too loud. I see it's like maxing out here. On my side, it seems like it's maxing out, but maybe just let me know, guys, if it's too loud, if it's too quiet. I mean, I'm seeing the levels here, and it looks like it's like max out right now. Okay, so yeah. Just let me know if it's too loud. I don't want it too loud because it's a bit intense. Yeah, so everyone let me know. Matt Smith has the wave. Hello, Beth. How are you doing tonight? Where are you joining us from? Jeff says yes in Peru. Okay, so you're mentioning the beach town for artists. Perhaps that would be Mancora. Mancora is it's a beach town in the north, in like 3 hours south or 2 hours south of the Ecuador border. Okay, so Mancora has a really good weather. It's really good weather. It's even in the middle, like at the beginning of summer, it's still not too hot. And that's when rainy season starts. But yeah, overall, there's a lot of people that go there to, they play music, and there seems to be a lot of like an artist type of draw there. So yeah, I've been to Mancora many times, and I love it there. It's a really beautiful beach, and there's lots of that artist crowd. But I guess that's kind of a lot of the tourist areas. They have the artists that hang out and play music and whatever. So that was kind of my experience there. Okay, Kralk says, okay, it's better, thanks. Okay, good, thanks. Let me know, guys, if it's too quiet, too loud. It's hard to figure out what's going on with this microphone because I've been kind of having a difficult time understanding it. Okay, here we have Matt Smith. Michigan guy just learning about Peru. It's an adventure with leaving home. Yeah, definitely. Peru is a good spot for people that want adventure. It's an adventure spot. And I'm going to show you a bit of what my experience was this past couple months. So let's go ahead and I'll show you a couple more pictures. And when you have any more ideas, like what the first thing you think of when you hear it, let us know in the chat box. So in general, I like talking about the geography and climate a lot. I'm a big geography nerd. Actually, that's one of the focuses of my studies at my university in Minnesota. I did one of my bachelors in geography. And anyways, so the 3 main regions of Peru are the coast. Okay, so one example of that is here. This is when I was driving through the northern coast in a place I believe it's called Cancas, which is I think in between Mancora and the border of Ecuador, like right before there. And then we have the mountains, right? So that's the more famous area, which would be the part with Machu Picchu. And that's actually where the mountains kind of slowly start to go down into the jungle. And one example I have for you here is the mountains I went to. I drove through with Natalie to go to Colca Canyon, and this was a spot with llamas. Right, you can see the llamas in the background, and yeah, so that was a fun experience. That's another part of the mountains that if you get high enough, they're kind of like a really high altitude animal. Yeah, so you can see it there. And then the jungle, as I mentioned, I have not been to the jungle in Peru yet, but this is a picture of Iquitos, which I've definitely wanted to go to, and the Tarapoto, all these other places. And, you know, that's another huge part of the tourism in Peru that drives people to these unique places. Jorge Vergara. Eric, don't forget Barranco. It's about a mile from the Pacific Ocean. Yep, that's where I spent my month in Lima. I had an apartment in Barranco. I was actually looking for pictures of Barranco when when I made this little presentation thing, but I have a video. I'm not sure where it is. So yeah. Jeff says, I was a meteorologist in the Navy. Oh, awesome. Awesome, Jeff. Well, I haven't actually done anything professional with geography. I just really enjoyed it when I was in the university, right? Something that I kind of, use sometimes, use it really often to plan my trips and to plan where I'm going and my routes on my motorcycle driving around and stuff. So it's more of an informal thing, not really a professional kind of thing for me, but that's pretty cool. Really cool. Meteorologist. Very nice. Okay, so what we have in these three regions are deserts. So as you can see, there's kind of a desert spot in the northern beach area. Like Piura is like a very, very intense desert. Very, very dry desert. And then we have the Andes Peaks. So these are, I believe this is around 4,000 meters. This is actually the road that I took with Natalie, which I think is considered to be one of the highest drivable roads in South America. And we didn't know that, or I didn't know that. She definitely didn't know that. And when I was talking to some other motorcycle friends, they're like, yeah, that's actually one of the highest roads in the entire country, or I'm not sure if it's country or South America continent, right? But yeah, it was in the middle of the winter. It was insanely cold the day that we drove there. So anyways, that was quite an interesting experience there. So those are the three regions. And so you can tell that there's a big difference for when it comes to not only the northern beaches to the southern beaches. Like, for example, right here on the picture I have below, this is in Piura. So I spent 6 weeks in Piura last year. Actually, would it be last year? Yeah, last year, 2024. And end of 2024, like right before the summer. And it was very hot. And I heard Lima is quite hot in the summer as well. But this is a picture of Natalie and I in the middle of winter in Lima. And boy, it's so cold. The humidity is like 90-95%, 100%, like almost every day. It's insane. So you have to wear coats like this, right? You have to wear. This is me with my one of my 2 sweatshirts that I wear when it's cold, and then I had the coat on top of it. It was just very cold. So the differences in weather are pretty drastic. So Lima has this humid, weird, like hot or humid desert, right? So very high humidity from the ocean current and that coming off. And Cusco, which is in the high mountains in the Andes, it's very cool, especially in the winter. It reaches very low temperatures. I think it reached down to 3 Celsius or so when I was in Cusco in August. So, July, August are like the coldest months, and it goes down to freezing. So, yeah, when I was driving over the mountains going to Cusco when I stayed in Espinar, it was -2 Celsius, which is, like 30 degrees Fahrenheit, which you wouldn't think of in the tropics, right? But that's just the high Andes, right? And then Iquitos, another one place I haven't been to on this list, and then it's the humid tropical lowlands, right? So lots of rain, very wet, and I don't have a picture for that. We have a couple people coming on in with Kralk. Barranco is nice and next to Miraflores, Lima. Having like a boom of construction, apartment buildings, especially. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, all of Peru is really just going through construction, but yeah, Lima big time is changing pretty quickly, and yeah, that's that. I'm not sure if I saw that much construction specifically in Barranco, but yeah, you could see it pretty much everywhere. So yeah, it was pretty big seeing that, and I've been going to Lima off and on for flights and for whatever since 2009, so I've seen it really kind of improve quite a bit. So we have Krauk again with good prices. So that's something I'm not super. I wouldn't say for renting, at least for renting. I think Peru for renting is overpriced. I mean, not Peru, Lima. I think Lima, specifically Barranco and Miraflores, have incredibly high prices. And when you go to like top tier cities in other Latin American countries, if you go to Colombia, if you go to Ecuador, you can go to Quito or Manta or Cuenca or whatever. You can find apartments and places that are either in that nice zone or near it for way, way cheaper. Bogota, for example, Medellin. I mean, I think in general, just compared to its peers, it seems to me like Lima, the accommodation for at least the accommodation prices are really, really overblown, a bit exaggerated. For example, since I've been doing this trip, going back and forth around Latin America, Lima has been the absolute most I've spent on any apartment, and I'm staying in an apartment that's way nicer than it right now for much cheaper, like $150 cheaper. So, I wouldn't say it's amazing value, but it's good. Yeah, obviously it's good compared to the U.S. or something. Here we have Carlos. Hey, Carlos, thanks for joining us. Hello, Eric. Thanks for this online chat. Thanks for coming. So, Matt says, so what attracted you to Peru? Well, like I said, Matt, I've been coming here for a super long time. Well, coming to Peru. I'm not in Peru now. But when I started going, it was actually due to some friends. So I actually lived with some Peruvian friends that I studied with at my university in Minnesota, St. Cloud State. And I met them at school. They were really cool. And then randomly, they're like, hey, we're going back to see our family over the winter holiday. I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. Well, what are you going to do? He's like, we're going to go to beaches, probably go to like Machu Picchu. I'm like, what the hell is Machu Picchu? What is that, right? So, and long story short, I ended up going down because they invited me down. I didn't speak any Spanish at that point. I spoke very, very basic high school Spanish, right? Like perro and gato, and that's it. And yeah, so we went down. I did my first trip in Latin America to Lima and then all around Peru in 2008 or 2009. And then, just kind of continued traveling from that point and continued coming down to Latin America pretty frequently, living and studying and working and traveling and just doing everything. So there's a lot of different things, but, my friends are the main reason why I came down in the beginning. And then after that first experience, well, then I was like, wow, I couldn't believe how great the beaches were, how amazing the food was, and we're going to actually jump into that right now. So, Beto says, you are in Lima, right? No, I'm not in Lima. I'm in Bolivia right now. I'm not in Peru right now. Jorge, back in the 70s when I was going to college, most U.S. citizens didn't know where Peru was located. Nowadays, it's better known, maybe because of migration or diversity. Yeah, definitely, Jorge. I definitely think that's that's something that has taken a massive change. Now that I was actually talking to my friends today, my English friend and my friend from California, we have this WhatsApp group and we chat about stuff. And I was chatting with my friend that I met on my first motorcycle trip in Mexico. And he's like, yeah, seems like tourism has really changed recently. Like tourism used to be so much more adventurous. It was so much more difficult to do. And I was like, yeah, I watched a movie about comparing some motorcycle journeys back in 2000 compared to 2020s, right, 20 years later, and he kind of showed how different the entire situation is and how kind of commodified, how commercial tourism is. And Peru is like at the very seat, right, at the front lines of tourism in Latin America. I would say it's probably more famous now than Rio. When I was young, when I was in my teens and whatever, I think Rio was like number one for Latin American tourism. It probably is Peru and Machu Picchu now. So I think, yeah, the fact that it's really exploded and boomed, that is going to be the what puts Peru on the maps. It wasn't really considered this like really popular place. It didn't have the marketing that it has now. So I totally agree that right now it's like really, really famous and well known compared to in the past when no one really knew about it. Machu Picchu was discovered fairly recently. Yeah. And I think I see here Matt. Oh, thanks for the donation here, Matt. Appreciate it. France, Polony, more expensive than Colombia. Yeah, I definitely agree. But Colombia isn't much cheaper, but it is cheaper. In general, Peru is a little bit more expensive, specifically accommodation in Lima. So, of all things, I'm not trying to say that Peru accommodation is always more expensive. Lima, in general, I would say is an exception, right? You can find like coastal city apartments in Colombia for way cheaper than what I paid to stay in Barranco for a month. It was overpriced and not very good. So I just think in general, that's just something that I've noticed in my years. I've spent probably 10 or 11 years living in Latin America already. And in Peru, I've been back and forth, like I said, since 2009. And I've never really rented in Lima because I knew that the options weren't ever that good of value, and also I didn't really want to live there compared to like Arequipa and other cities that I like more. Paul Diaz, love your channel, Eric. I know Pisac is overrun with gringos, but what about the rest of the Sacred Valley? So Paul, we have 2 videos coming out. One more video with the English friend that I made. He's going to tell a bit more of his story. I'm still finishing up that. I'm not sure which one I'll finish up for Wednesday. I try and do my videos on Wednesday and Sunday. Hopefully, I'll get his video out. He's living in Urubamba. We did a walk around Urubamba already, but he actually talks a bit more about living there and why he's there and what he pays and all that. And yeah, Urubamba is a much lower, not with as much tourism. So Pisac is very, very touristy. I have a walking tour that I did there. I mean, I don't really post my walking tours anymore because it seems like it's just, I don't know, people don't really tend to watch them. So I typically only use them as B-rolls for the interviews that I've been doing recently. So yeah, Pisac. I mean, if you're interested, I can post that Pisac walking tour. Just put some music in the background. But yeah, it was pretty much just a really chilled town. But you can tell that the tourism there is very strong. It's very obvious that it's one of the main tourist parts of the valley, of the Sacred Valley, and Urubamba has a big population, but actually has much less. It didn't seem like the tourism there was as heavy. And yeah, there are some other people that mentioned that there's another spot that I stopped in one of the other spots. I can't remember the name of it, Icantas or something. I can't remember, but that one seemed like kind of in between Urubamba and Pisac. Francie says, for me, the cheapest. Medellin is expensive. Yes, Medellin is definitely very expensive. I actually lived in Medellin. First time I went there was 2018, and I loved it. I loved it. Pre-COVID Colombia was amazing, and it was still undiscovered, just like Peru 20 years ago. Colombia 10 years ago was still kind of considered to be this dangerous, scary place, and now it's, oh my God, everyone's, rushing to go buy property and live there and retire and whatever, because it's just an amazing place. It's amazing. And yeah, so I actually I went back to Medellin to do my content there last year, and the year before that when I flew in myself and my bike over to South America. And yeah, I noticed that Medellin, it was so much more expensive than when I was there, specifically for accommodation again, but it's still cheaper than Lima, which is, again, that's why I say like Lima to me is surprisingly expensive for rent. I found like an apartment, a reasonable apartment in Medellin for $300, $400, $500, and in Lima, finding a reasonable apartment there for under $600 is like pretty difficult. Kralk, San Miguel district, the part front the sea is full of construction and prices are much better than Barranco and is nice too. Jesus Maria Lince. Yeah, I actually, one of the guys I met, I think he's actually from Minnesota as well. He's living in Lince. I think still is, but when I met him, he was. And he's a retired Army vet from Minnesota. He's in Lince, I think is what he mentioned. And then, and San Miguel. Yeah, San Miguel did actually seem like it was a more reasonable place. Yeah, there were some areas that were like not as expensive, but in general, I'm just kind of comparing what you can get in some of the nicer parts of the cities of each of these like bigger cities. San Alfredo. Hi, Eric. New on your channel. Hi. Thanks for joining us tonight, buddy. I'm from Peru, been in the U.S. for 30 years. Planning to retire in Peru. Your channel is helping me on all things I need to consider. Example, health insurance cost. Right, actually, we're going to be talking a bit about that a bit later, about health and cost-related stuff. Thanks for joining us, guy. The best advice that I can give to anyone who wants to move to Peru or any other South American country is to live as if you're a native of the country and not a tourist. Yeah, live as a local is a good suggestion for sure. That's more or less how I do my lifestyle as well. You get the quality stuff for the lower prices. I mean, for me, at least for like local food, I don't really care that much about going to like internationally renowned steakhouses everywhere I go, or Italian this or that. I just try and find where the locals go, and if it's something I like, I'll just continue going there while I'm there. Here we got Escaped at World. If you absolutely wanted to live in Brazil, where would you stay with warm weather and $1,200 a month? Well, $1,200 a month is pretty reasonable. I mean, you can live in most of Latin America for that, and in some places you can live quite well, like perhaps here in Bolivia. I mean, Peru, depending on where you are, you can live quite well on that as long as you don't pay too much in accommodation. And Brazil is a bit more expensive though, so you have to really do some research into getting good accommodation prices. I've looked into my accommodation months in advance on Airbnb, and yeah, you're talking about, for a decent apartment, usually it's $300, $400, $500, $600 a month, and that'll eat up about half of what you have. So depending on like how much you're planning on going out and doing stuff, it might not be very much. I work online, so I don't actually do that much stuff. I just go out, go to the gym a lot. I go to like parks and go to some tourist places, some nice places, meet up with expats to meet them, tell their stories on the channel. So I actually don't spend that much money. I probably don't spend much more than well, yeah, maybe 1,000 to 1,500 is probably what I typically spend. Um, my girlfriend Natalie, she's flying in to Bolivia right now, so I'll end up spending a bit more than normal because she'll be here. But yeah, she's coming in, so I gotta make sure she's having a good time here. But yeah, overall, living on 1,000, if you're kind of younger, you don't have a lot of expenses, you're not paying off bills, or you're not trying to pay for really expensive health insurance, you're gonna be okay with that, as long as you know how to live like a local, like Jorge says. Kathy and the dogs. Oh, nice name. Love your videos. Can you recommend a warmer beach alternative to Lima? I was planning on Manta, but I'm having serious second thoughts. Okay, so you are thinking about Manta. So I have a lot of videos there, and I didn't have any issues. There's another YouTuber, Grumpy Old Gringo. He mentions, he gives advice, and he talks about living there, and yeah, that's a good beach. That's a good beach, and I didn't think it was I didn't think it was super dangerous. Although, yeah, like Ecuador is having some problems with the narco situation, and hopefully that stuff ends quickly. But yeah, if you're not interested in Manta, I would say probably Piura. Some of the beaches in Piura are pretty nice. You could go to Mancora, northern Peru. If you want a warm beach, you need to stay in the northern part of Peru, because like when you get down to like Trujillo and continue going south to Lima, that's when the winters are pretty intense, like very cold. Like if you want a year-long warm beach, that's probably you need to stick around Piura, which is the northern part of Peru. So yeah, check out Mancora. That would be a good option. Krelk. Another good option. The gated community or neighborhood in the south of Lima. They are selling land to build your home. Asia district is very popular now. San Andres district. You know what's funny, Krelk, is my very first trip to Peru. My very first beach was in Asia, right? Asia. I went down there. I went down with my like 6 or 7 friends from Minnesota, from my university, also St. Cloud State, and we ended up renting a house on the beach, like a beach house, and it was quite the experience, because it was our first time. Many of our first times being in Latin America, and it was our first beach trip and whatnot. So it was a fun time. Asia is kind of a crazy place. It's like a tourism kind of like party place, right, during the summer. But I don't think that's a good option for Kathy, because it's very cold in the winter. Krelk, in the Sacred Valley, there are new gated communities too, so they sell you the land to build. You have all inside the community, and it's more safe. Oh, okay. Yeah. Seems like a pretty good option. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, when they do have problems with safety, it's not like the safety you think about in the U.S., like, oh, someone's going to stab me or shoot me or something. Like, that's not the safety situations that happen, really. I mean, they do happen, but they're very, very rare, and that's not the norm. It's more the exception. So when it comes to like lack of safety, or it's more like people like petty crime, stealing stuff. Like if you leave stuff outside, if you don't lock stuff down, if you don't lock your doors, or if they're really ambitious, maybe they'll break in, but just steal stuff. That's in general what happens in most of Latin America. Jorge, hey Eric, by the way, the Vikings lost. You're a big football fan, huh? Yeah, actually, I watched it when I was young, but I haven't really I never really continued watching it after I kind of stopped living with my family there. So anyways, yeah, let's continue a bit of our chat about just things about Peru specifically. I was mentioning about the geography and climate, and you could tell that the weather is really different. Like when you're talking about here in Piura, this is actually Piura city. Very hot, and even in the summer, in the wintertime, it's just pretty much perfect weather. It goes down to like the mid 60s or something. So really good place to always have warm weather. But when you go into the mountains here, this is me and Natalie in the Plaza Yanaguara in Arequipa. So that's going to be the mountain zone, right, in the Andes, and 2,300 meters. You can tell, like, we're wearing coats. This is the middle of winter as well, but it's still going to be, pretty cold. You'll need a sweatshirt pretty much all year. This is me and my friends from, it was actually my high school friend, Jeremy. He came down with his wife, and they came to check out Machu Picchu. Speaking of Machu Picchu being super, super famous. And as you can tell, like, look at the weather here, right? So it's blue skies. This is like some of the... So what's interesting about tropical countries is that the dry season is typically in the winter, but it also has some of the hottest temperatures in the daytime, because it's when the skies are clear, but that's not the same thing in Lima. But most of Latin America kind of has that kind of weird dynamic where the dry season, it has the coolest temperatures, the lowest temperatures in winter, but also the highest temperatures in the daytime. Whereas in the summer, it rains more, so it's cooler in the daytime, but warmer at night. Quite the interesting difference there. So yeah, this is an example of how it's, Cusco is 3,400 meters or so. So even if it's daytime, it's sunny, we're all wearing sweatshirts, right? So it's, the air is crisp, very crisp. We've got some more comments here. We got from Andrew Wilshire. I live in an apartment in Cuenca, Ecuador. I am British and love the South American lifestyle. That's great. Andrew, I absolutely love Cuenca. Cuenca is one of my top cities in Latin America for sure. It has more kind of a laid-back, very chill vibe. I don't know if it's a good spot for younger people. But, I went there for the first time when I was in my, late 20s. And, yeah, it was great. One of my first trips. My first trip to South America was, I went to Cuenca and loved it. Yeah, it was a bit cold for me at that moment because I didn't really like the cold weather at that time. But, yeah, I went back to do some videos and interviews there last year. I spent a month in kind of the suburb part of Cuenca. I had this really nice apartment for like $300 some, like $350. A really great apartment. Obviously not in like the super luxury or nice convenient zone, but yeah, I love Cuenca. And Kralk, in the countryside of Asia district, there are gated communities too, but yes, it's pretty cold and cloudy in the winter. Yeah, I drove past Asia as I was leaving Lima going to Huacachina, which I'm going to show you in the next slide here, or in the next slides, next pics. But yeah, those are some cold places. Like specifically Lima, going down to where the department or whatever it is that Huacachina is in, because it was super coldy and like drizzly the entire time until getting into the desert area where Huacachina and the Nazca lines are. So speaking of that, history and culture, the Incan Empire clearly is a part, like a selling part, an interesting part of Peru, and why people come here, go to Peru and visit and live. The Spanish influence, you can see that in the downtown, the centros, and they usually build some really beautiful cathedrals and whatnot, and modern Latin identity, right? So that's who they are today, and clearly the iconic site number one in pretty much all of Latin America is Machu Picchu. Nazca lines is actually represented in this picture here. So if you want to see that right here, this is actually one of the Nazca lines that I saw from right here on this this little area. You can walk up some stairs and it costs like $1 or something. As I was driving past, I just stopped and tried to take a couple pics and saw, most people, what they do is they go up in the airplane. And I just did not really need to do that. I've seen it in an airplane before. If you take any domestic flight in Peru, for example, Arequipa to Lima, you'll see it in the flight, the commercial flight. So yeah, Nazca is another like one of the top places in that like tourist trail if you go there for tourism specifically. This is a picture of Natalie and I with this guy that I actually met at the Nazca lines. He was driving the same bike as me. I have a Honda NC700X, and I pulled up to this place. I'm like, what? Another Honda NC700X? It's not a very common bike in Latin America. And yeah, him and I, we were both going to Arequipa, and we ended up driving together. And yeah, we took a picture together here at the Plaza de Armas when we made it to Arequipa. Yeah, cool guy. And yeah, we drove together. It's probably the longest trip I've done, or the longest day of driving I've done with any second driver. We probably drove together for 3 or 4 hours. It was quite the time. Here we have some comment from Escaped at World. What sort of inexcusable financial mistakes you could make that could cause you to go pack your bags and go back to Europe, USA? Escaped World, are you from Europe or are you from the USA? Where are you from? What sort of inexcusable financial mistakes? That's a tough one. I mean, when it comes to making bad financial mistakes, I mean, the opportunities, the options are endless. I mean, you could gamble, you could get robbed if you took out a bunch of cash and were not very smart about being Escaped World, UK. Okay, gotcha. So I have a really good friend, a lot of good friends from the UK, specifically my buddy that I drove through Mexico with. He's from London. He's in Wales now, I think, working at a bike shop. But yeah, anyways, the financial mistake that would send people home. Well, it depends on like what kind of lifestyle you have, because not everyone is coming down to Peru without income, right? So if you don't have income, if you're not working or you don't have some kind of investments or stuff paying you, and you're coming down with the mentality that you're just gonna, have a good time, you could easily, spend too much money on this or that. And I guess it depends on how much savings you have, really, because the savings and the income, that's really what's important. And making sure, like, I don't think anyone would be wiped out if they took out $300 or $400 from the ATM and then it was stolen or something. I mean, that, you shouldn't be traveling with only a couple $100 left. I mean, if you do travel with very little money, then that would be a situation where you would have to go home, I guess. So it really depends on that kind of thing, I think, where how much savings you have and what your plans are and how expensive your lifestyle is. I have a pretty low cost lifestyle, just being on the bike, renting monthly Airbnbs and working and going to do local things. I don't typically spend that much, so I don't, I'm typically saving quite a bit as I do this. Jorge says, knowing that Ecuador uses the US dollar as its currency, doesn't it make it more expensive for tourists than in Peru? No, it does not, Jorge. The dollar is used in many countries. It's used in Panama. It's used in El Salvador and Ecuador. And El Salvador and Ecuador are both insanely cheap. Panama is also cheap, specifically compared to its neighbor, Costa Rica. And Costa Rica doesn't use the dollar. Costa Rica uses the colon. And, directly below it, their neighbor has almost the same stuff, the same nature, the same this and that. And they use the US dollar. So you think, oh, it must be so much more expensive. It's not. It's almost half the price. So, yeah, using a certain kind of currency doesn't directly mean that it's going to be more expensive. Nathan Mansfield, Vilcabamba, Ecuador in the casa. Nathan, I read a sad story about Vilcabamba recently, and it was crazy. Kind of shocked me at how I thought Vilcabamba was kind of outside of the danger zone, but then I read this story and I was like, couldn't believe it. How just the story of break-ins. There's break-ins everywhere in Latin America and around the world, but it was a pretty intense story. Carlos says, Eric, what is your experience heard of about using buses between cities in Peru, buses interprovinciales? Here we have 180-degree seat transfer. Okay, so I'll start with what you're talking about at the end. The buses with the bed, right? The 180-degree, that's called bus cama or whatever it's called. Those are so comfortable. I think it's some of my favorite buses in the world. I've slept on like bus cama, like the buses with 180 or 160-degree beds in Vietnam and in Brazil. Vietnam was very comfortable and insanely cheap, but yeah, probably Peru has the best like buses with the beds on them in terms of comfort. I remember when I went on I think it was Civica or Civic, I can't remember the company, like they give food, like 2 different meals, like dinner and breakfast. And I had like, the TV, watching movies and like really comfortable. But one thing I'll mention that is that those buses drive so recklessly, so dangerously, and just all drivers do in Peru. I'm not trying to say bus drivers are at fault. I mean, everyone in Peru drives really, really dangerously. I really disliked driving in Peru a lot. So when it comes to the buses, I think if you can do your own transportation, it's also dangerous. But I preferred driving myself now that I saw how insanely bad the drivers are, specifically in Lima, but outside Lima as well. So yeah, when it comes to like the buses, I kind of have mixed feelings now. I mean, back when I was taking the buses all the time back in the day, I've been coming to Peru since 2009. I'd come every couple of years, and I'd take buses around, and I'd have a good time, and I never thought about it twice. I did hear, stories about sometimes that they crash and whatever, and yeah, of course, that's definitely a risk. But yeah, after driving it myself, I'm like, wow. Being in one of those, imagine being in one of those beds, and then all of a sudden that happens. Obviously, that's horrible, horrible thing to think about. But I'm a little bit, scared of those buses now that I've already been driving in Peru myself, just after that experience. So the interprovincial buses currently have been having some problem with the, I'm not sure if it's narco related, but it's mafia. The mafias have been like attacking bus drivers of all people. Transport drivers have been attacked. They've been killed a lot, and it's really sad. It's really crazy what's happening there. So for people that are going between cities, that is something also to consider. It's something that hopefully will improve as soon as possible in Peru, because it happens very rarely. Like, if you take a bus from like Lima to Cusco, Lima to Arequipa, it's super uncommon, but there have been like people like mafias that are like stopping the buses and like, stealing people's like phones and wallets and stuff. It's kind of crazy right now, which I thought only happened in Brazil, to be honest, because that happens in Brazil quite a bit as well. They're pretty unsafe in terms of compared to the rest of the region. But yeah, that's what I've been seeing in the news recently. Blink, El Salvador is also a dollar country. Pupusas, yeah, pupusas are stupidly cheap. They're pretty good. They're not like Peru quality food, like Peru flavor and blah blah blah, but they're so cheap and good. I remember eating pupusas all the time on like the beach south of San Salvador, going to the surfing beach area, and then like sweating my balls off all day and then eating some pupusas. Jorge, financial mistakes could happen if anyone is trying to buy a property and does not look for, yeah, that's also a good point. Good point, Jorge. If you don't have legal advice, you don't have a good lawyer. If you don't have a good lawyer, a trustworthy lawyer, and you don't have good connections when you're trying to make a big purchase, that would send you packing as well. That would send you back home. Going back to what Escaped at the World mentioned. if you're trying to make an investment and you don't have a good lawyer, and you don't have the correct information, perhaps like you try and buy a property and it turns out the property wasn't actually fully transferred to the person you sold it to, and then they disappear. Well, yeah, that will send you packing, won't you? That would be unfortunate, but that would be an example of that. Nathan said, it's been about a year since that happened in Oklahoma. It's safe here and far away from the partisan crime. Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. I just saw that. I saw that story and I was like, oh my God, that's insane. It was a while back, but yeah, I really think that I read in the story that the person involved, they didn't have like gates, they didn't have any like type of protection against home invasion or anything. So that's kind of something that would be, I think, pretty useful in countries like these. Jorge, is it true that traffic in Peru is pretty awkward, but when you look at the statistics and compare the number of accidents per capita with any developed country, Peru is very safer? So I think what you're talking about here, Jorge, is that like traffic deaths, so deaths from traffic accidents are lower. Like, for example, do deaths caused by traffic accidents in countries like the U.S., where I'm from the U.S., and I would assume perhaps Canada similar, maybe the U.K. When people are driving, they don't really drive what's called defensively. There's no like real defensive style in driving. So when people are driving through the streets, they're not really looking around for bad drivers because, they just hope or they assume that everyone else is driving and following the rules because the majority do, or a bit more than half, depending on the city, I guess, where you're from. In Minnesota, people follow the rules very, very well, but there's a person here or there that'll run a red light or do this or that, and then when that collision happens, it's at very high speeds and people tend to have fatalities. They tend to die. So when it comes to statistics that relate to that, people just in Latin America drive super slowly because in most of Latin America, people don't follow the rules. So if you drive too quickly, you're not going to be able to avoid the collision because everyone's doing what they want and, not following the rules, running red lights or doing whatever. Where I am now in Bolivia, like driving here is pretty complicated, but it's far safer here, I would say, than Peru in driving. But yeah, people do drive pretty much like incredibly aggressively. And, I'm surprised there weren't more accidents in Lima, the way that they drive. But, yeah, I mean, they drive slowish, but just like the amount of like space that they give each other I think is really, really bad. It's really dangerous. Scott Tobar, would you like to come to the Rioja province and do a video at a regenerative agroforest in the Zona de Amortiguamiento del Bosque de Protección Alto Mayor? I don't know where this is. Is this in Peru? Because I am not in Peru at the moment, Scott. So just keep that in mind. I am in Bolivia at the moment, and I'm not in Peru. I'm not sure where this place you're mentioning is. It is called Alto Mayo Agroforest, same name as our YouTube channel. Okay, so yeah, I like I said, I'm not sure where that is, so let me know exactly. Retiring in Peru depends of your personal tastes on how you want to live, what kind of lifestyle you want. Yeah, 100%, of course. So, you need to know like what your plans are, like what your lifestyle will be, what you're going to be doing for fun. Do you like going to the beach every day? Do you like going on walks in the big cities? Are you a foodie? Do you like just eating new food or fun food or good restaurants, going to the best restaurant, like one of the top restaurants in the world is in Barranco in Lima? Do you like hiking, right? There's a guy that I just interviewed in Cochabamba that loves hiking. He's 75 and he's still hiking. He's just, he's a very active guy. So that's the proper place. So it depends on what you like doing, right? So definitely. Tedelius. The Andes is so much cheaper cheaper and peaceful. Right. The Andes is way cheaper than Lima. And the food, I was actually surprised at how good the food is, which I'll continue with on this little picture presentation I have for you to live in. Yep. Jorge, it is in San Martin region close to Tarapoto. What is in San Martin? Is that, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Yeah, so let's get a bit more of the pics that I presented for you or had got prepared for you. I don't know if you can hear this. I don't think the sound comes through, but here we have a bit of the history and culture. So culture is a big part of why people like going to Peru as well, right? So like they want to see the historical, like, you know, obviously the Incan ruins, but also you can see like traditions, right? So you can see, I don't know, is that shown here properly? Yeah, you can see the video, right? So this is a video of just some dancing. I think this is probably this is a parade that was going up to one of the cathedrals in Cusco. And they're dancing, having a blast here, and yeah, they just playing a bunch of music, and you know, so many different celebrations happen in Cusco. I was really happy to see all the cool stuff there, and the weather was pretty good, and yeah, the food was fantastic. There was just trout everywhere, just trout. Loved it, absolutely loved it. Trout everywhere. We have some more comments here. Here we go. We've been living here for almost 6 years. Broke ground early 2020, planting 11,000 trees, mostly fruit trees. I'm a naturalized citizen. My wife is native born. So again, I'm not really sure what place this is. Rioja province. This is in Peru, right? Or is this what part of Peru? If this is in Peru. Yeah, so let's continue on. So one thing that people move down to Peru for, which I'm guilty of that, is the food. All right, Peruvian food is world class. And, you know, I've traveled all around the world, lived around the world. And, you know, when I'm in Peru and I eat it every day, I think, oh, you know, it's not actually that great, whatever. You know, I eat it. But then I keep on going to new places and new cities and keep on getting new types of food in each different place. And it reminds me, like, yeah, food here is like just the average food that you get. Like when you live like a local in Peru, you get outstanding food for very low cost. Like, here's an example. This is the Japanese style, Chinese style food. So this is the chifa. And this is one of the first meals I got when I went to Arequipa. I just got a wonton soup with some noodles at this like Japanese restaurant. And it was fantastic. It was like $4, $5 for that. Just out of control. Like if you like Asian food, which I lived in Asia for 5 years, right? I was 5 years in Vietnam. And if you like Asian food and, you know, you miss maybe Asian food and you're in Latin America, the best place for getting your like Asian fix is going to be in Peru. This is a picture of Natalie eating cuy. Okay, so this is the cuy. This is the guinea pig. And that was her first time eating cuy. You know, she actually could get, she's from Colombia. You can find cuy in Colombia, but not everywhere has it. This is a picture of her eating the arequipa. Arequipa's main dish, which is I'm blanking out on the name of this right now. The pork like soup, whatever it's called, with the bread. Adobo. This is adobo, which is they eat on Sunday mornings. We actually ate that up in what's it called, Vilcay or whatever, when we went up to Coca Canyon. This was in Coca Canyon area. This is another local dish here, which is like the potatoes that we ate at a restaurant near where I was staying, and then we found like a steak spot. You could, if you look for some deals and you want like you eat like a local as well. Like this was just phenomenal steak, like just good quality, not like super luxury. It was like $6 or something, or 5 or 8. I can't remember. It was just nothing compared to what you would expect to pay in the United States. So just being able to get a good steak dinner, her and I, for like $10, $20, $10, $15. It was just like really, really good. Okay. Let me get a bit more vino here. We got another comment here. Región San Martín, Selva Alta Norte, next to Moyobamba. Okay. So, yeah, Scott Tobar, I have to tell you, I am not in Peru. I am not going to be in Peru for a while now. Sadly, I'm going to be missing that yummy ceviche, missing the chifa as I continue through the rest of South America for this channel. If Peru would have given me 90 days and then the possibility to extend another 90 days, I possibly would have stayed. Probably would have stayed. But Peru just makes it difficult for tourists right now for I guess for reasons that they think are necessary for whatever reason. 4 on 6. Good name. Adobo, yeah. I was blanking out there. Carlos, have you met someone who has obtained the new digital nomad visa for 1 year, renewable for... No. So I think Ken in Lima got... did he get a digital nomad? No, I think he did the educational visa. Digital nomad I have only met in Colombia. And also Jay, who I just told his unfortunate robbery story in Quito. He was in the process of getting his digital nomad visa. So yeah, I don't really know that many, to be honest. I mean, I am a digital nomad myself, but getting the visa and staying long term in some place, I haven't really done that yet myself. Scott Obar, why don't they give the possibility to extend for a second 90 days? Well, who knows? In the past, like I mentioned before, in 2008, you can come to Peru for 180-day stamp on arrival. And then I think what happened was in the 2020 COVID time, since so many people were starting to work remote, and moving to work and live in lower cost countries, that was kind of when they started adjusting those policies, and then they started making it basically not an option, right? So I talked to all the immigration officials I could, and they said, no, you have to leave after 90 days. There is no extension option, which is pretty weird, because that's, I think, the only country that does that that I've been to. Like every other country, if they give you the 90 days, they will let you extend the 90 days. Other countries, they if they don't give you the 90 days, then it's, they have their own policy. Oh, I only want to give 30, for example, or I only want to give whatever, But yeah, it's very, very strange. Does Peru tolerate visa runs? So theoretically, you could do a visa run. But me and my motorcycle, it's impractical, right? You can see a picture of my bike right here. It's impractical for me because I need to get a visa and the bike permit. If I don't get the bike permit, then I'm not going to be able to come to the country. So when it comes to doing that whole visa run, well, you're leaving, right? And for Peru, since they don't allow you to extend, they know that people do this. They know that people go to the border cities. They go to Chile, or Bolivia, or whatever, go to Brazil, to, what's that place called? Or up to Ecuador, cross over. And the ones that cross over and come back, I think sometimes they get denied, or they say, hey, you can get like 6 days, or something really small, right? So it's not really something that happens anymore. Scuttlebar, no, not anymore. It used to be that you could do that. I did it in 2014, but I think that strategy of border hopping has been defunct. Okay, he says 2017. Yeah, sure. I think I heard from other people that it was a big policy change in 2020. But yeah. Carlos says, what about your experience using internet in different countries in Latin America, velocity and reliability? So, yeah, good question, Carlos. So, Peru is on the money there. Peru has fantastic internet. I'm in Bolivia right now, and I really dislike working here and using the internet here. My apartment now has decent internet. It's not like amazing, but it's good. But it's not as good as Peru. I could not find Peru's speeds anywhere, and what really sucks is my phone internet. So I have the phone internet through Entel, right? Everyone told me Intel's the best, so I got Intel, and I pay like more than what I paid in Peru, and I get the worst speeds I've had in. It's ridiculous. It's probably slower than what I got back in Minnesota in the countryside, which is almost nothing. Right here, I don't know. It says that I get like higher speeds, but when I like do a Google search, sometimes it takes 50 seconds to finish. Right, so no, it's like literally in Bolivia, it's unacceptable. But no, Peru, my phone speed super fast. Pretty much anywhere. Obviously not in like the super, middle of nowhere places, but yeah, when it comes to being in any town or any city, it works great. Here, I'm in the middle of the biggest cities, and still I use my internet, and I can't even search on Google or go to Google Maps. I search on Google Maps for a place to go to. It takes 40, 50 seconds to finish the search. It's insane. So yeah, of all places, pretty disappointed in Bolivia for that. But, places like, in terms of good speed, probably the best speed I've had so far is in Colombia, like insanely good speeds. I had an apartment in Pereira when I was visiting and spending time with Natalie, and that was 500 download, 500 upload, whereas here, I think it's like 30. And that's like the highest plan you can get. 416, digital nomad visa is still not available in Peru. Okay, sure. Yeah, that would make sense. Why I haven't met anyone yet. Peru had 180-day tourist continuously visa in the past. Do you think it could be a good idea if it came back from 90 to 180? Yeah, I think 100% Peru would benefit from tourism if they wanted to, if they did the 90-day with a 90-day extension. It makes it. There should be a reason to it, right? There should be a reason for not allowing it. Like there must be some, study that someone in government, it turns out, blah, 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 if we give the 90 plus 90, I don't know. There should be a reason for it, but maybe there isn't. Who knows? Maybe it was just a snap decision, kind of something based off no fact and something that could be changed. Scalabar. Also, you used to be able to buy property with a permiso para firmar contratos, just with a foreign passport as a tourist. Do you know if that's changed? Episode with the Scottish guy didn't mention. So, Stuart is the Scottish man, and he has a carnet. He has like the, I don't know if it's the permanent resident or exactly what it is, but yeah, he's not a citizen. He is a Scottish man, right? Scottish passport holder, and has just the permanent resident, like he just has a resident visa, right? So I'm not sure what the permiso para firmar contratos really, I'm not sure what that actually is. So, yeah. What's going on here? Close. Scalabar, it has not changed. Okay. So going back to why people love Peru, right? Food is a big part of it. I have more food. Just in the past, in the past year, the 3 months I spent there, I just got so much good food. So Peruvian food is clearly one of the reasons people love Peru. Ceviche is something that I was like blown away about eating the first time, because I was like, what? Uncooked this or that? This is the trio marino that I ate with Natalie down in Chorrillos. Went down to Chorrillos to a restaurant I found on Google Maps that had like 2,000 reviews, and went down. We got This was actually we had two different like main courses. This was the menu trio menu or something, right? Like the local like working class dish, and these were each like $5 or $6. Like they were really really good, and they had a ceviche and like the fish. This was the seafood, arroz con mariscos. It was phenomenal. Like, oh my god, something that if I a lot of times when I went down to Peru in the past, but I only stayed for a couple days, is because I just went to a good restaurant, had some good ceviche, some good food, and left. Went to the next country that I was actually going to. So yeah, that was a good one. You know, just getting the typical menu ejecutivo. I mean, just this was in some random place in the mountains and on the way to Cusco. Yeah, just a great soup. Great little dish with rice and beans and meat. I think this cost like 7 or 8 soles. Like amazing dish for like just over $2, right? So it was super good. Again, the local dishes, local soup, local food right here. I just love the beans that you can get here. It's kind of difficult to find it here in Bolivia. They're not a big bean place. I love beans. This is in Arequipa. I ate in Arequipa with with Arcadius, who's going to be in the channel soon as well. He's a guy from Poland who has an interesting story, and he brought me out to have lunch there, and we had this like very traditional potato with pork, and I think it was like a pork ceviche type of thing. I'm not sure what it's called, but very interesting food in Arequipa. And then the last one, I wish this stuff would stop going under everything, but this is the ceviche. You can just get ceviche as the appetizer for some of these dishes. So, for example, instead of getting this soup in Lima, for example, they'll just give you ceviche instead, and they still cost $2, $3, $4, you know, for the executive or the ejecutivo. So that's a big the big plus for living in Peru. We got some more comments here. Here we go. 4 on 6. That looks great. Yeah, this food is. I definitely miss it. Carlos says, permiso para firmar contrato is a permit given by Migraciones for a foreigner to sign a contract, mainly buying a property and going to a notary. Okay. So that could be something that he did. He didn't really mention it, though, yeah. This is my wife and L and I's channel, in case you're curious. Okay, thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. I'll try and check it out later. PLC mounts. When are they going to update the Nomad visa requirements? And by the way, my top 3 plates are lomo saltado, pollo a la brasa, and arroz chaufa con mariscos. Yes, all of those are fantastic. I actually had a dish that I didn't know about as I was driving to Arequipa driving. I think it was Arequipa. Yeah, I think I was going down to Arequipa on the beach. I found a pescado saltado. Yeah, it was like fish, fried, breaded fish on the beach. Well, I wish I had the picture there. Man, it was phenomenal as well. Yeah, all those are really good. All of those are great. Pescado bar. Will you have to catch you on your next trip, though? How long until you're eligible for another visit to Peru? Well, I mean, I can go back to Peru. It's not that I can't go. It's just that I have the rest of my plan of going through South America on my motorcycle planned out. And Peru might be at the very end, depending on what's happening with Venezuela. But that won't be for a while. That will be probably around 2027. So, yeah. If I do make it to Peru, more than likely it'll be because in 2027, Venezuela is too dangerous. I wanted to go to Venezuela, and I still do, but yeah, I don't know. I have some contacts, some other motorcycle YouTubers and motorcycle people that drive through Latin America, and they went to Venezuela, no problem. But the thing is, my bike has a plate, right? The placa from Minnesota, right? So when you have the U.S. plate, I think that throws an extra curveball, perhaps, in the situation. Whereas there is a girl that I watched that does motorcycle vlogs in Latin America, and she bought a bike in Colombia, so that she had Colombian plates on it. So yeah, anyways, maybe I'll make it back to Peru. If that doesn't work out in Venezuela, I'll probably just from Brazil go take a boat down from Manaus to go to Tarapoto, and then I'll finally make it to the jungle. Amanda, down under. Volume could be higher. I'll turn it up on my end. Okay, so someone mentioned that the volume is high or low, and then I turned it up. So I'll turn it up a little bit more. So, guys, let me know if that's too loud. I remember the first time I had the volume this loud. When I watched the replay, it was super loud, like way too loud, like distorting. So just let me know if that's the case. Sachalotus. Shout out from Trujillo, man. Definitely the food is best thing in Peru. 100%. That's my number one favorite thing. Like sometimes I have flown into Lima and stopped for 3 nights just to eat, just to have good food on my way to other countries, right? So like when I was flying from Chile to Colombia, I stopped in Lima. I mean, that was the cheapest flight. And it was, instead of just having the 2-hour layover, I decided to do the 3-day layover. I had some friends I wanted to see and then eat a bunch of food. So yeah, that actually is going to be coming up. Some food that I ate actually in, so you're in Trujillo, Sacha. I made a video with Kevin, which will be coming up soon. He's in Trujillo as well. He actually became a citizen in Trujillo and lives with his wife there and their family. But I went to visit my high school, or my college friend, the guy that I came down with originally in 2009. His name is Manuel. He is from Chimbote, right? So as I was driving down south from Piura and going through the coastal region, going from Piura down to Lima, I stopped in his city and stayed a night, and we had just epic lunch, which will be one of the pictures coming up. I'll show that to you in a second after I get through some of these comments. Amanda says, thank you, Eric, for your efforts and videos. Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Appreciate it. Sacha Lotus, Lunes de Chambar. I'm not sure what that is. For what I have read and seen, Peru have a very good business environment in Latin America. I mean, for investors, banking, paperwork, reliable long-term rules and regulations, tax incentives. Right. I have read what you've been writing in the comments of the videos, Carlos. Very useful insight, so I appreciate it. I'm not really sure how that compares to the rest of South America, but it seems like those are good policies. Bazan Alfredo, pescado saltado, anticucho de pescado, and ceviche a la brasa are unique and great options to try. Excellent channel. Thank you for the great information. Thank you, Bazan Alfredo. 4 and 6. Great ceviche in Chimbote. So, yeah. Okay, now that I brought up Chimbote, I might as well just go to that picture because that's in the next one. Right here. Oh, no. It wasn't there. Where was it? Okay. So I thought I put it onto there. I guess I did not. That's too bad. Okay, so I thought I put the picture of the Chimbote fish that I had with my buddy, and I guess I couldn't find it. But yeah, that one was pretty excellent. Some of the best fish I've had in Peru as well. So Scott says, so how long do you typically spend in each country? I'm bummed I just discovered your channel. The algorithm really dropped the ball on that one. Well, Scott, I think the thing is, I typically won't come under people's radar until I'm already outside of the country, because there's a lag. There's a lag on the on how long it takes to edit the videos, to produce the videos, right? Get everything together. It's just me and one editor, so I don't really have a huge team or anything. I mean, I would like that, But in general, my channel is so small. It's just not at the size where I can hire a bunch of people. I pay this editor. My editor is Manuela in Colombia, and she does a great job. She helps me out quite a bit. But overall, yeah, I work like nonstop. And by the time I get my videos out, I'm already in the next country because, I don't have the team to get them out, within the same week. Usually it's a month or 2 months after I make the video that I actually release it. So, for example, the videos I'm releasing now in Cusco, I actually did those back in August and September. So, it takes a couple months to get things rolling and to get the stuff before that out. So yeah, actually one of the future videos coming out is in Lima. So yeah, the reason why why the algorithm is pumping it out now to you is because it's just getting released now. It's just the whole dynamic of having to edit and them taking a lot of time and, not rushing it. So that's just kind of how things are. It's too bad, yeah. But yeah, that's hopefully in the future, if I do end up coming back, and then we can work something out. Carlos, here in Lima, getting a landline, fast and reliable, 1,000 megabytes. Is possible prices can be seen in telecom communications. Landline, FTTH, fiber optic. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so the speeds that I got in every city I've been to in Peru are really good. So I'm really happy about my time working in Peru. Doing any video calls and uploading, downloading videos. Never an issue. Loved it. Very, very happy about that stuff. Scott, ha ha ha. Send me a message next time you're on your way to Peru. In that case, yeah. Will do, Scott. Carlos, Scott, do you have a website on your project? Scott mentioned that he has a YouTube channel as well. So if you click on his icon in the chat bar and the chat box, Carlos, you'll be able to open his channel. Okay, so moving on to Peruvian food, a bit more about Peruvian food, not so much about the food. I also wanted to mention that the fruit, this is pretty common in a lot of parts of the tropics, right? You can find really good papaya, banana. This is papaya, banana, mango, and I think pears. You can find really good quality tropical fruits in many of these tropical countries, but Peru definitely has really good tropical fruit and crazy cheap. I think I probably paid around $4 for this stuff, just kind of enough fruit for like 3 days. I usually eat fruit for breakfast. Here we have a great, just beans, a classic standard dish, beans with some fish and some rice, just the standard stuff, ejecutivo. But when it comes to what you're paying, this is back in Arequipa, 12 soles, right? So that's $3 and a little bit, right, for a very good healthy lunch, and something that I took advantage of big time when I was there, because I always kind of eat and live like a local, so it's nothing like something I wouldn't do. I do it everywhere I go. In general, if I like the food, I'll just eat out the local food as much as possible. And here is an example of when maybe eating local food can be a bit dangerous. So this is me. You can see me in the picture right here, or in the mirror. I'm taking a picture with my phone. And I'm actually taking a picture of a guy. He sold ceviche near my gym in Piura. This was in like December 2024. And he sold ceviche under these little umbrellas over here. And I think he sold me ceviche. Like, that was the cheapest ceviche I ever bought. I think I paid like 6 soles for it or something, like $1 or something, for like a big plate of ceviche, which I brought home. And it was good. It was super good. I don't know if I put another picture of it, but he served it with like pasta. And I was like, what? Pasta with ceviche? But yeah, when you go around to different parts of the country, you'll just, you can get some yummy but dangerous street food. All right. Is it on here? No, it's not on there. We have some more comments here. Scott, so does that mean the interviews in your videos are people you meet impromptu during your travels? Okay, so Scott, yes and no. So I don't like, just go up to random people on the street and say, hey, are you a foreigner, blah, 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 retiree, type of stuff. But I do meet people in some places. So, for example, I have met people at my gyms. I go to the gym pretty regularly. So when I go to a local gym and I meet another foreigner, and they tend to go at the same time, then they actually they have appeared on my channel already. So back in Honduras, when I was driving through Central America, I have an interview I did with a Texas guy living in Roatan, and I just approached at the gym. I saw him, hey, are you from here? I don't, it's pretty clear he's not, and when it comes to people that are, foreigners like me, and they have the same routine as me, going to the gym or whatever and stuff, just cracking up a friendly conversation, that sometimes leads to interviews. I will have another one here actually, or in Peru, in Cusco coming up, which is one I did as well because of an interaction at the gym. I go to SmartFit, or I did when SmartFit was available. Here there's no SmartFit in Bolivia, which is super disappointing. But I love exercising at SmartFit. And Roatan didn't have SmartFit either. But anyways, the Cusco contact I also made at SmartFit. It was a foreigner that I was like, I'm pretty certain this guy is not Peruvian, So he was going to the gym with me like the same exact time as me, like almost every single day, just like me. So I'm like, well, might as well just bump into him and say hi. And he turned out to be a super friendly guy. We hung out a couple times, and yeah, he gave his story that I'm going to be posting. My editor is going through that now, and Manuela. So hopefully that comes out pretty soon. So yeah, in general, when I meet people in person, that's more the exception. It does happen, but doesn't happen often. In general, what I do is I post on Facebook groups. So the majority of the people that I actually meet are either people that contact me or I contact on Facebook on the groups, and they say, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I have a good story, or I know someone with a good story, or I know someone that has good information for, relocating, right? So I just post about my trip, and then people tend to just reach out and say hi, and then I just contact them and say, hey, tell them what I'm doing, and yeah. So it's kind of like it's kind of a slow process. It doesn't always work out well. For example, Costa Rica, I only arranged to meet one guy, and he ended up being kind of crazy and didn't actually work out the interview. So I didn't actually get any foreigners there, but I don't think it was a big deal because, Costa Rica is like the place everyone goes to and the place that everyone knows about already, right? Because that's where everyone does the content about relocating to Latin America. So yeah, I was like, okay, well, I don't need to spend all my time in the country where everyone else is already at. Scuttlebar, yeah, we have good tropical fruit on our farm, but don't remind me of what the market pays from. That's a sore subject for me. Right. I can imagine. Yeah, sure. 416, have you been to every country in Latin America now? No. I have not been to any of the Caribbean countries. I definitely want to go, but just hasn't worked out, right? So I've been wanting to go to, Puerto Rico, which is now a territory in the U.S. Yeah, all of those countries. I almost went to Cuba back when I was living in Mexico years ago in 2017. I was just about to go to Cuba. That didn't work out. But if you're talking about mainland Latin America, I have 3 more. in South America I haven't been to yet, and I'll be going to those, in this next coming year. So Bolivia, this is my first time in Bolivia. I'm in Bolivia now. I'm in Santa Cruz. And I'll go to Brazil, which I've already lived in Brazil for 3 years next. And then after Brazil, I'll be going down to Uruguay. I have not been to Uruguay, so I'm excited for that. Although I have heard, things about how, maybe it's just not a good value place. So I'm not sure how easy it will be to find people if it's, it's not a very popular place to go to because of the prices and the distance for Americans and Canadians, which are the people I mainly meet. So I haven't been to Uruguay, and I have not been to Paraguay as well. So Bolivia, I hadn't been to before, but now, on this trip and this project, I'm doing all of Latin America, mainland Latin America that I can. So yeah, what's coming next? Paraguay and in Uruguay. I have not been to Paraguay either. Those two will be my last two, and then Venezuela, which I have not been to either, but not sure what's going to happen with that country. It's been kind of, a pretty tricky spot. So sadly, I don't know if I'll be able to go there and make videos there. I don't know if there are any expats there. I mean, I would assume there are, but retirees probably not. It's just too difficult probably to live there. But I mean, I would go there anywhere. Just go there anyways, just to explore and see if that's true. That's kind of another thing that I like doing about this trip and this project, is seeing what is actually the current situation. Not what people say, but what is actually happening, right? Because what people tell you is not always what's actually happening. Like I had no idea so many foreigners were living in Bolivia before I came here, and how amazing Bolivia was. I wasn't expecting how modern for it to be and like much wealthier than I was expecting, right? So yeah, those things are things that you have to experience yourself. And then, if you have a microphone, or if you have a platform, then helping everyone else understand, or at least let other people share their stories is kind of what I'm doing here. Croc 8. I don't recommend to eat ceviche from the street vendors because they don't have a cooling system for the fish and can get sick. Right, and that's what I was showing in that picture, that picture before, because I thought, well, these guys must, like, if they make a living selling fish in these little like weird mobile food carts or whatever, and they have these little like tent, the umbrella things, the parasol, whatever, to prevent the sun from coming in and cooking everything. If they make a living off of it, it must be okay. That was my thought process when I was there, right? So that was kind of what I was thinking as I was doing that. And I didn't get sick, actually. I thought it was pretty decent. It was pretty good quality, that ceviche I got for like $2. But yeah, it's dangerous. So, I don't think I did it again after that. Scalobar. So what's the verdict? Peru, a good place to retire? Absolutely. Yeah. I would never say that it's a bad place. Not a chance. No. Very good. Lots of people already call it their homes. Like people, for example, in Lima, tons of expats, and I think the biggest retiree population is there. I mean, people just like having, I think, that ease of access to not only the best hospitals in the country, but also the massive international airport, which allows them to go back and forth visiting family and friends back home. And if anything happens at the hospitals in Lima, the best ones that perhaps they don't have the specialty services required for whatever illness they might have, they could just hop on that flight directly, Lima to New York or whatever it is, wherever they're going, direct flights, right? So it's a really good airport to get back in a hurry if they need it. So yeah, in terms of like retiring in a big city for healthcare reasons, for that specifically, which is what a lot of retirees are very focused on, I think Lima is a great spot for people like that. Okay. Scuttlebar, I can recommend someone for you to interview in Uruguay. Yeah, I appreciate that, Scott. Yeah, go ahead, send that contact or that name or whatever, however I can contact them. That would be very appreciated. Someone with especially if they're retired and they call. I'm going to be staying in Montevideo. I already have my accommodation arranged there, so yeah, I'm excited to go there. Montevideo is another beach city. And to be honest, I mean, there's apartments for the same price in Uruguay that you can spend in Lima. That's why I say Lima is a bit overpriced, because everything else in Uruguay is so much more expensive, according to what people say, right? They say, oh, you can't eat out for less than $10 or whatever. It's like American prices in general is what I've been told, which Lima is not. Lima is definitely not that. Carlos, what would be the pros and cons of living in Peru versus Colombia? Yes, I know it could have an extensive response with so many points to mention. Yeah, that's a deep one. I probably will end up doing some comparison videos soon of places like that, like some of the top choices, especially places where I have lots of interviews. I want to try and do some this country versus that country. But that's the difficulty, Carlos, and that's what you mentioned, is that the response, it's extensive, right? There is a lot that can be said, but it's a difficult one specifically because I don't think, comparing a country to another country, unless they're incredibly small, is very logical, because when you're covering a country like Peru, I mean, as I was showing you in my little presentation, one area to another, it's night and day. It's almost like, if you compare Lima to the jungle, to Tarapoto or whatever, if you compare Arequipa to Piura, I mean, they're completely different places. Obviously they have ceviche, they all have ceviche, some form or whatever, and they all have, the Peruvian identity, the locals do. But I mean, the places are so different. So when I thought about doing these in the beginning, I was like, oh my God, well, just doing comparison videos between the big cities in the mountains compared to the big cities in the coast and blah, 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 blah. Those by themselves are like, something you'd have to spend a lot of time on, because they're almost like they're different countries themselves. So it's a really complicated thing for me to kind of approach, because I don't really know what's the best. I mean, my first plan to make it appropriate, or I don't know what you'd say, but to make it like more like a similar perspective, or a similar place from each country, is doing like the capital city. So like staying, would the capital city of Ecuador, for example, Quito, be better than the capital city of Lima? Because you can compare capitals because they're big cities, right? But they're still completely different, because Lima's on the coast and Quito's in the mountains, right? But I mean, you have to find like a thing that's like similar about them, because I think for example, we have some of our viewers here are in Vilcabamba, which is like, like the countryside, right? It's like the countryside in the mountains. Like it's not at all comparable to any big city anywhere. It's like a completely different lifestyle. So it's difficult for me to do the whole country pros and cons versus country pros and cons, because they are all so completely different. But pros and cons of living in Peru versus Colombia. So, Colombia is, it has amazing healthcare, and I'd say when it comes to pros of Colombia versus Peru, probably Colombia is a little bit cheaper, so the pro is going to be, the cost is a little bit lower. They have kind of the similar geographic regions, so they're neither similar-ish. So neither of them are like that much better than the other one in terms of like geography and in terms of weather and stuff. They all have those different options, but Colombia has lots of cities in the mountains, like big cities in the mountains, right? So the capital city, Bogota, is in the mountains. Medellin, the second biggest city, in the mountains, right? So the mountainous cities, like the cities in the more temperate zones, right? So above 1,000 meters, from Bucaramanga up to Bogota, and even above that, there's cities that are higher than that, but they're like smaller, obviously, than Bogota. Manizales, all those places. Like there are so many options for cities in the mountains in Colombia. That's a massive pro. Peru has some, but not as many, right? So that's kind of a thing that I think Colombia does quite well on. And Colombia seems, for whatever reason, more modern than Peru, despite being like cheaper than Peru. So it seems like they either have more modern, like newer structures or newer buildings being built recently, maybe more investment. And Peru seems to have a bit more outdated. When it comes to like the more modern areas, it seems like they're more outdated. They're not as new. Yeah. So that would be the pros for Colombia, whereas Peru, Peru has better food in general. I mean, the Colombian food's quite good, but it just doesn't have the same flavors. And they don't make good ceviche, and Peru does kind of outshine most countries for its food. Although, like I said, the food in Colombia is quite good. In terms of beaches, Peru much better than Colombia. Colombia's beaches are okay. I think there's a couple here and there. I haven't been to all of them, so this is all based on my experiences, right? So. I've been to a really good beaches in northern Peru, and there's so many, and they're year-round, very nice. I've been to the beaches, a few beaches in Colombia. I don't know, maybe that's not a good comparison, because the beaches in the Caribbean side of Colombia are fantastic, but the beaches on the Pacific side are not like as good as the ones I saw in Peru, perhaps, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's not a good comparison, but Peru does have really good beaches, specifically in the north. I think that's another part that Peru has kind of a weird climate with the Humboldt Current and that cold water on the coast. It makes the most of the southern part of Peru really cold for half the year, whereas Colombia has more stable year-round temperatures. So yeah, when it comes to it has a bit more seasonality, which is interesting, because tropical countries don't really have seasonality in general. They have kind of just dry and wet, just colder, dry, and wet, humid, more cloudy kind of seasons, just the two seasons in general. And it seems like southern Peru at least, has kind of an interesting mix of stuff within the tropics. So yeah, I could talk about all the different things that I think about those two countries. I've lived in Colombia for more than 2 years, and probably spent close to 2 years in Peru as well. So I got stuff I could say. Carlos, as a side note, as you are in Bolivia, here in Peru, most of us are happy with the new government over there. Hundreds of diesel fuel trucks coming into the country from Puna. Oh, okay. So they're expecting that the fuel subsidies are not going to continue. Is that what you're mentioning about the new president Paz? Because yeah, for those that don't know, I'm in Bolivia right now. I spent the past 2 months or so in La Paz and Cochabamba, and then now I'm in Santa Cruz. And yeah, the new president was just brought in on Saturday, and he's like a center right, one of the first in the past 20 years they've had a socialist left, and now the center right is a change, right? So most, I think, investors and people are expecting to see reduced subsidies on the fuel. So we'll see if that happens. I don't get any of the fuel subsidy benefits. I'm not a citizen, and they don't give it to non-citizens. You have to have like the local plated vehicle So they actually their subsidy is crazy. It's incredibly cheap. The fuel here, I think it's like $1 a gallon, $1.20 a gallon maybe now with because their currency has been slowly recovering after the new president took office, because it was the black market rate was like double the bank rate like just a month ago, and now it's kind of going back to the bank rate slowly. Scotto, just to confirm your email, just does it start with generic? Yeah, that's the one. Carlos, beaches in Peru better than Colombia. That is a surprise. Did you mean Mancora and Punta Sal? So yeah, I mean, I was more mentioning that the beaches in northern Peru, or just the Pacific beaches in Colombia, aren't as good as the Pacific beaches in Peru. But when I think about the Caribbean beaches, then I guess that's not a very good comparison, because I was thinking only the Pacific side, because Colombia has both. They have the Pacific side and the Caribbean side, and the Pacific side is not bad, but it just isn't nearly as good as the Caribbean. The Caribbean is pretty amazing. So and like if you go to Tayrona next to the Santa Marta beach, those are actually pretty amazing. So I guess maybe that was a bad example. Boink. Ecuador is also affected by the Humboldt. Right. That's kind of where the Humboldt is like ending, because there's another current. I forget the name of the current. It's like the tropics current or something. I can't remember the name, but that's kind of the more that hits the northern part of Ecuador. I mean, if you see like Esmeraldas, that area of northern Ecuador, I don't think they have the cooler water as much. I think it slowly kind of has more of that warmer water that is in Colombia. I mean, if you're in like I went with Natalie to the Pacific side of Colombia, Buenaventura, the biggest city on the Pacific in Colombia, and that's definitely not the cold current, but I'm not sure where specifically it ends, but I think it's around the northern part of Ecuador. Kralk, do you know all the modern districts in Lima, like La Molina, San Isidro, Surco, San Borja, Jesus Maria, or are you just stayed in Miraflores and Barranco? So Kralk, I am not a good person to ask about like all parts of Lima, because I've only stayed like pretty much always went to Barranco since I started coming to Lima to visit my friend. He was working and living in Barranco, so I would always come to Barranco to see my friend. He's not living in Lima anymore, but he's my high school friend from Minnesota. And I have some local friends that were in different neighborhoods, different districts that I don't remember which ones they are. I did remember going to visit a couple times where Bob is now, and he's staying in what's it called, Magdalena del Sur, Magdalena del Mar. That's one. I went there to visit him a couple times, and I went there before I met Bob, and but never like stayed or lived in any other places besides Barranco. So, I'm not a good person to ask about like the different parts of the city, because I've pretty much only gone to the same places, just gone to, Barranco, some hostel or some hotel or some, apartment, and just stayed there. Carlos says, I agree. Colombia has several nice middle-sized cities to live in, right? Specifically in the mountains. Like those mountain cities there's so many, and they're really good. Scott Barr, do you have plans or intentions to live permanently in any of the Latin American countries? If not, where would you travel? Where would you plan to be long-term, or just travel forever? Yeah, good question, Scott. Well, there are some options for that. So in general, I think I do enjoy kind of changing the country where I am in. Every 6 months for me is not a big issue, because I like getting a new kind of flavor, even within the region of Latin America. If I can go from one part of Latin America to another, kind of rejuvenates me, kind of like, makes me feel like I'm able to, get a different type of cultural experience and, kind of start fresh again with a different area. And I haven't lived in the States. I haven't lived in the U.S. Since 2000. I think it's 2012. I lived in Hawaii for a year, and then I left and went to go live in Asia. And since I left Hawaii, I haven't been back to live in the U.S. since then. So, I mean, going back there is not really a plan. My plan, and also finding a place to live like long term is not really like my priority. I mean, if I find a place or an option that works out well, yeah, that could work out. But I mean, it's not really my priority. So if it happens, it won't be something that I'm trying to plan out. I'm not trying to find, I gotta research that place to stay in. That's just, if it happens, it happens. But not really my plan. There's like a nomad guy on YouTube as well. His name is the Nomad Capitalist. And he has a pretty kind of like salesy kind of commercial style channel. Like, just seems like everything is commercial. But anyways, he has some good perspectives. He's a good talker. He's a good at informing about certain things, and relocation is what he kind of specializes in, but that's kind of what his services are, right? So he's in general trying to sell a product. But anyways, he always talks about what he's been doing for a long time, and that seems like something for me, like that would work out for me as well. He calls it the trifecta method. And the trifecta method is when you basically spend 4 months in 3 different countries throughout the year, and then that doesn't set off any requirement to pay taxes, and then you won't need any visas in general if you choose certain countries that give up to 6 months. So, I mean, I wouldn't say I need 3 countries, but even 2 countries, 2 countries, 6 months each, could be something I would be okay with doing for a long time. I don't really have any like very strong connection to any country right now where I feel like I need to be there for more than 6 months per year. So that's kind of how, since 2012, I've just been living. I mean, in Vietnam, I lived there like years at a time, but they're okay with you living years long on a visa. You just do the that tour, whatever it's called, the visa hopping, border hopping, whatever you call it. That was a pretty common thing to do, and nowadays maybe not so much. But yeah, when I was there 10 years ago, it was. Carlos, do you have some sort of homesick feeling after traveler in Latin America? I think missing home so much. So, Carlos, like I mentioned before, I haven't lived in the States since 2012. So, even when I was back in the States, I was studying abroad and I was traveling. And that started in 2007, I think it was. My first trip abroad was 2007 to Turkey. And then I went to go on my first trip here to Latin America, which is Peru. And then after that, I studied in Chile for a year, and then I studied in Brazil. So, I mean, I've been like, in the U.S., then leaving to go study or live or do whatever. And then after that, after I graduated, I ended up coming back to Brazil. And I would always go back home to visit, But, by the time I started living abroad full time, like going back home for me was not like something that I was like super excited for for job related things. It's always for family and friends. It's always to see family and friends because that's the main thing that drives me back there. The only thing really nowadays. And and so I do obviously miss family and friends. But a lot of times I've been able to convince them to come meet me. My mom flew to meet me in Costa Rica as I was driving through Central America. So, yeah, in general, when I can see them, if it's somewhere else, yeah, that's more or less what I want in the first place is to see family and friends. And I've been trying to get some friends out. They've been wanting to visit me, but they have a pretty big family, lots of kids, and we've been kind of trying to plan out how to meet up. in Latin America, and they just mentioned they wanted to come down in March, and I said, hey, I'm going to be in Uruguay, maybe not the best place for a cheap Latin American vacation, So when I can see my friends, that whole situation of wanting to, go back is not like priority. Krolk says, I recommend you to visit all those modern districts in Lima so you can have a better general image of the city and all the things that the city can offer to someone who want that kind of city lifestyle. Okay, yeah, I will definitely keep that in mind. I, will definitely be back to Peru at some time soon. So who knows when, but I'll definitely try to really explore the other parts of Lima. Yeah. Scalabar, yeah, I listen to Andrew's podcast sometimes, right? Andrew is the nomad capitalist guy, right? Yeah, he kind of, he makes a lot of videos and he repeats himself a lot, but he definitely has a lot of good perspectives, and, it's kind of an empowering type of mentality and that empowering style of saying, you should go where you consider life to be best for you. And, that's kind of the whole idea of relocation is like, well, why would I stay in a country where I'm born if that's not the right place for me, right? So he has a lot of good perspectives and ideas. And, he's good at eloquently like talking about what he thinks and how those things make sense to him. And I like that. But, he kind of repeats himself a lot, a bit salesy. Carlos, what did you choose traveling in Latin America intensively instead of South Asia? Okay, well, I already lived in Southeast Asia, so I lived in Vietnam. But, yeah, the area of Latin America is particularly good for people like me because I speak Spanish and Portuguese. So, the main languages in this region are Spanish, Portuguese, a bit of English and Dutch and French or whatever. So, yeah, outside of the islands, the Caribbean islands, pretty much the mainland is Spanish and Portuguese. So, when I was living in Asia, I was kind of, after 5 years of not being able to communicate, and I didn't learn Vietnamese very well. I tried, but it didn't work out. After a while, I was just getting kind of sick of not being able to communicate. So that was one of the big reasons of me leaving Asia was, I just didn't mesh as well with the culture. I feel like the culture in Latin America is similar enough to the U.S. culture, to a point where I feel pretty comfortable here, even though, it's not the same. It's close enough compared to Asia, which is so different, So that was kind of a big difficulty for me. Scuttlebar, I just had a family reunion in Miraflores recently, and it was basically like being somewhere in La Jolla, California. Nice. Yeah, so there's places that, the culture can be very similar. Carlos, what would your impressions of South Asia versus Latin America? Something to mention as noticeable differences. Carlos, I'd say a big difference is the lack of narco culture. There's no narco culture in Southeast Asia, or when you say South Asia, that's actually referring to like India and other places. I went to Sri Lanka in South Asia, but besides that, I don't really know many places in South Asia. Southeast Asia, I've been to a lot, like Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, and all these places, Laos, Cambodia. And yeah, so Southeast Asia is incredibly safe. So super safe. I would walk around at night in Saigon when I lived in Ho Chi Minh City. I would go visit friends and go to some bars nearby, 10-minute walk, and walk back at like 2 a.m. And nothing ever happened. It was super safe. Scuttlebar, are you interested in renouncing U.S. citizenship in the same vein as Henderson? Nomad capitalist guy? No, that's kind of an extreme thing to do. I think it's kind of, I need citizenship somewhere else. I think it's not even allowed, unless you have a citizenship somewhere else, because then you're stateless, right? So I wouldn't even be able to. I'd have to get citizenship somewhere else, and I'm just, I'm not like super involved in any country, any specific country, at the moment. Scott says the beef we have is the self-employment tax following us here, but not sure we want to renounce since we'd only be Peruvian. Just not convinced about putting all my eggs in the Peru basket. Yeah, that's a big thing, is that you have to be really, really committed to one country, or just the fact that you're cool with having the benefits of the country's passport you have, besides the U.S. passport, which, like I said, I don't really have any strong connection with any one country, and I don't have any citizenship. I don't really plan on getting any of it. So yeah, getting that done is it seems like a pretty extreme thing to get done. I'm not really super interested in that. So I wanted to go through a bit more of my picks here. I have quite a few more picks. We have more of the Peruvian food here. I wanted to mention here we have the mixto tumbesino, which is in Tumbes, the northern part on the Ecuador border. My favorite, the classic ejecutivos that are super yummy and a couple dollars. This is a lunch I had with my friend from Lima, one of my first friends in Lima, Manuel's cousin, Fiorella. We went to go eat at, this is La Punta, and in Lima, La Punta. She brought me to one of her favorite restaurants, and then we had this food right here, which is I think she had the duo, and I had the trio marino, right? Trio marino, which is the fried fish, ceviche, and the arroz con mariscos. Absolute banger. 100% love this type of food. Yeah, another part that people love about Peru is the cost of travel and living. It's affordable, of course. That's a big part. People like to travel within and live within it, and live in nice places, like decent hotels, decent Airbnbs that are all really affordable. Transportation, like what we mentioned with the buses, you can get a 180-degree bus, right? The bed bus, and those are super affordable as well. I think I went from Lima to Arequipa on one of those buses. It's like a 20-hour drive, and I can't remember spending more than $50 or $60. So it was like $2 per hour or something, $2 or $3. So yeah, for example, these are two pictures in Cusco. This is actually my apartment in Cusco. The place where I stayed in Cusco was very nice. That's going to be appearing in some of my future videos. And yeah, you can find an apartment in a lot of Peru, like a decent apartment, for $200 to $600. I think this apartment that I found on Airbnb here cost me around $350 or $400. Not super expensive. A nice view of Cusco up in the hill. Yeah, so you can get really affordable, really good places all around the country, but specifically outside of Lima. I've got another comment here from Scott. Well, it does have the Mercosur reciprocal agreement. Right, so that's a good thing. If you like going around Latin America, South America, you're going to have an easy access there. But still. Grauk, the weather now in Lima is really nice. It is sunny every day, and I think all is more enjoyable. Yep. That is definitely something that I missed when I was there in the winter season. So I'm glad that things are improving with the weather, because that's something I've never been a big fan of in Lima. So here we have a bit more info about the cities and regions, reaching out beyond Lima. We're talking about Lima has this picture right here. This is the park. I think it's called Parque de las Luces. I brought Natalie there for the night show. We saw the night show with the lights. That was a pretty good time. This is Natalie and I at this is us at the Plaza de Armas in Arequipa. Again, cold, middle of winter, but still, it's always kind of cold at night there. This is around Christmas. I think maybe it was Christmas Day in Piura. And, it's always hot there. It was cloudy that day, which wasn't, after so many days of super hot, really intense tropical sun, getting a couple cloudy days is nice. Cusco, here we have the Cusco Plaza de Armas. And yeah, Cusco, you have to wear that sweatshirt pretty much almost all year. Almost all year long. So, yeah. We have the modern city of Lima. Cusco is historic and high altitude. Arequipa is quite clean and cultural. I think because of the low humidity also, because of the weather and the humidity, the retiree can benefit big time from that one. Trujillo and Piura, they're both kind of the northern part, warmer beach towns, right? So Trujillo is actually quite a big city, whereas Piura is quite a bit smaller. It's a big city, but it's not as big as Trujillo. And then Iquitos is one of the the biggest city in the jungle. So that one is one of the cities I plan to go to next time I head back. What do you got here? Oh yeah, so a lot of people also like the nature and outdoor activities, right? So when it comes to certain lifestyles when you're retiring, like for example the guy I mentioned in Cochabamba, he absolutely loves hiking, still does hiking. He's 75 years old. So when it comes to getting out and having an active lifestyle, and that's very, very important for some people, right? So for example, Machu Picchu obviously can be historical, but you can also hike in the mountains nearby there and do the Inca Trail. You can do like a really long hike all the way from from Cusco or from I think it's from starting in Ollantaytambo or something, like a 7-day hike through the mountains. Coca Canyon, you can see that right here in this picture. This is me at Coca Canyon, and that's me driving out there with Natalie back in August. Lake Titicaca. Let's see if I can actually play this right here. This is Lake Titicaca. I'm not sure how well it's being played on your screens here, but this is the drive around the southern part of the lake as I was going to Bolivia. Yeah, just a beautiful day. Tends to be pretty dry up there, I think. And yeah, the lake, highest altitude lake in the world, from what I understand. Little sheep everywhere at these altitudes, right? And what's going on here? And then we have stuff like this right here, the Huacachina dunes, sand dunes in that area of Peru. They really, really destroyed me when I went down. It's like the bodyboarding. You put your body on those boards, and man, they just bounce around, and I really just messed up my ribs so hard. Like I hit the ribs so hard, like I think I bruised my like side muscles, my like hip muscles or something. Pretty fun but crazy experience. One of those things you have to do once. Get the pain out of the way. Here we have Sacha Lotus. Have you tried any teaching plants, psychedelics like San Pedro, ayahuasca, mushrooms while in Peru? No, I haven't done much of that in a long, long time. Especially in Peru, I haven't done anything like that. I had a friend recommend doing something that wasn't psychedelic, but it was like a cleansing type of like medicinal treatment in Colombia. I never ended up making it out there, but he was like really, he said it really helped him out a lot with certain things. So no, I haven't actually done much of any of the plant-based medicine or the traditional type of medicine that tends to be pretty popular in those areas. No, I haven't. Boink says, if they have any magic mushrooms in Peru, it would just be Psycubensis. And Sasha says, not necessarily. When I was in the jungle, I went to a cow field, and besides cubensis, I found some shrooms that looked like liberty caps. I don't know if they were, but I just knew they blued. Okay, Semilancaita is not a tropical mushroom. I'm not really sure about all those stuff, guys. Let's get back to a bit more about Peru, because we're gonna finish this up pretty soon, as I have to get to sleep and wake up to get Natalie from the airport in the morning. She's flying in and she's arriving super early, so don't want to be up too late. But I'm gonna finish up chatting about the main topics about relocating to Peru before we finish up here. So related to safety, we have safety, infrastructure, and modern life. And that's kind of something that one of the first questions you think about when you go to a new country, right? Oh, is it safe? Is it safe? Is it safe, right? And so, for example, let's look at this picture. Here we have a picture of me at night. This is in Plaza de Armas in Arequipa. You can pretty much go there at any time at night, and it's always like quite safe. Arequipa, I walked around at nighttime by myself many, many times and never had any issues. So yeah, in terms of safety, like I met this guy's actually from Uruguay. He's living in Arequipa, and he would go back and forth to Uruguay. And yeah, so in general, Peru has a bad reputation for being like pretty dangerous, but in all the years I've been going there, I haven't had any issues at all. It can be like pretty dangerous in transportation, like I mentioned before with driving. But that's more like just, unfortunate collisions from like bad driving culture. Whereas like in terms of like actual like life-threatening situations, that's not really a thing that I think happens as frequently as people think. When it comes to like the life-threatening danger in Peru, I feel like that's realistically just between the mafia, the one mafia group versus another mafia group, or when it comes to like sadly the people working in the transport industry, they're kind of involved in an unfortunate way in becoming the victims of these mafia people. In terms of like infrastructure, in terms of having like lots of big shops and big malls and such, this is a big mall that had the gym that I went to with Natalie. Here, the Smart Fit. This is the Metro in Cerro Colorado. It's the northern part of Arequipa. So yeah, in terms of like having big malls, big shopping centers, like big, good infrastructure for that, like big cities will have lots of good infrastructure. Even if Lima is modern, even though it's chaotic, it's a bit modern and it has a lot of good infrastructure. In terms of healthcare, so this is what I was mentioning at the beginning. I was gonna let you guys know that that we have some videos that kind of dipped into these topics. So healthcare and services, right? So when I was hanging out with Les here, this is a ChatGPT, an AI version of Les. But yeah, Les, he gives his experience of being attended or going to the private healthcare services and also public. And he talked about it in the video there. You can go to a doctor visit if you need them to come to your house. You can get that done. And yeah, like I said, it's low cost and it's very good option for retirees. That's why I think Lima is a great option. And for people that are interested in having some type of assisted living type of care or service or help, that will be a good option in Lima as well, to have someone to help you with that and bring you to the hospital, or help you with medicine, or help you with, whatever needs to be done at a very affordable rate. So high quality clinics are everywhere for foreigners. So less is a good option for someone that wants to see the stories of using the local healthcare services. This is a dentist that I saw in Arequipa. He actually shows up in my Arequipa videos as well. Very good services for dental care. In this interview with my Polish friends here, they chatted about their experiences with healthcare a bit. Ivan, the wife, she mentions that she felt like the healthcare is actually better in Peru than back in Poland, which, when you think about Poland, when I think about Poland, I think that is quite a developed part of Europe, and that Europe is quite a developed area of the world. But yeah, she says that the Peruvian the Peru healthcare that she received was really good, and so good that she felt like it was better than Polish. So that's quite interesting. So another thing that I mentioned before that I wanted to bring up at the end here as well is about visas, right? So Bob, this is an AI picture of Bob. He has already been on the channel twice, right? The walking tour and a chat. We have one more coming out where he talks a bit more about the pros of living in Peru and a bit more of his personal story. And anyways, he actually in this future video is going to be mentioning that he helps people get their visas in Peru. So based out of Lima, right? So if you live in Lima, specifically if you're trying to get your retirement visa, he helps people to go through those processes. So he's a great resource to have, and he'll be appearing one more time on the channel very soon. So yeah, as we mentioned before, the real estate and rentals and homes can be very affordable depending upon where you find them, of course, and where you want to live. I think one of you living in Lima has a point that maybe I was unfairly comparing Barranco and Miraflores and not mentioning other parts of Lima that probably are pretty affordable and pretty good options. But yeah, there's a lot of options for the tourist, for the visas, tourist visa, retirement visa, and different residency options. It can be easier than the processes in other parts of Latin America, and especially asking for Bob if you're trying to retire down here. One example of a retiree that has his visa in Peru is Les, and then Ken as well. So all three of these guys, they are all retirees from America that have their retirement visa down there. So if you want any help, you can ask Bob for some help on that. Let's go back and check on some questions we might have here, some comments. Here we have Sacha, again, Peruvian here. When it comes to safety, it really depends on the city. It also varies the type of danger. Here in Trujillo, there isn't much petty delinquency, but if you have a business, you get extorted. Right, so the petty crime is I guess what is the most common thing in Peru in general. It hasn't happened to me once, but I feel like when people are talking about like, oh, it's safe, it's all about like, oh yeah, someone stole my phone perhaps, or pickpocket or whatever, which isn't life-threatening crime. So yeah, extortion, again, when it comes to living in Peru as a foreigner, right, as people from other countries, perhaps the U.S. or whatever, we're not going to have businesses in general. We're not going to open up a shop or be on the radar of these mafia people that will extort. So, in terms of like being a target in Peru as a foreigner, as an expat, retiree, whatever, coming from a different country, those situations don't really happen. The bus driver, the worker with a shop, right? The extortion, like you mentioned. Those just won't happen to any expats. Carlos asks, how many more videos do you have to be published in the future about Peru? So I'm nearing the end right now, Carlos. I mean, I do have a few more that I could publish that I have made in Piura with my buddy. We did a walking tour around Piura. Let me know if you're interested in seeing Piura and the walking tour with my local friend from there. I'd have to look into that one, try and find it. But, I have so many videos that I made, but I wasn't sure if, I could do it in a way that makes it like very enjoyable or very informative with my objective about mostly telling stories of foreigners. That's kind of one of my main goals right now, one of my main focuses. So in terms of like the recent content that I've already recorded, probably 4 or 5 more videos. In Peru, we have one more in Bob and Lima. We have my Polish buddy in Arequipa, Arcadius. And then we have 2 videos with Scott in Cusco. We have 1 video, the chat with Stuart, so that's 5. And then Andy's chat, that's 6. So around 6. We have 6 more videos specifically, and I'll probably start mixing in my Bolivia content soon as well. Sasha says, it probably was because it was on a cow field. Are you guys talking about the mushrooms again? If the mushroom was okay, right, as long as you keep a low profile. Okay, Sasha says, right, as long as you keep a low profile and work virtually, you're fine, right, exactly. So I don't think in terms of like, especially retirees, because they're not working at all, right? So, yeah, I don't think it's an issue for foreigners really ever. The ones that don't get involved in crime or things that can be dangerous, right? Just looked it up. Yeah, it looks like it. Okay, let's go ahead and continue with a bit of my pictures. The presentation. So, Carlos asked me about the pros and cons of Colombia and Peru, and another way to look at this in terms of pros for Peru is seeing the main advantages, right? So low cost is probably one of the top priorities for lots of people relocating, for retirees coming down. One of the top reasons. Amazing food. Again, one of the top reasons, right? So, of course, getting amazing ceviche for, or trio marino in Lima for like $5 or $10 is pretty amazing. Something I can't do here in Bolivia, right? I probably could find a decent Peruvian restaurant, but it wouldn't be the same price or quality. Cultural richness, right? So some people love the whole tradition, like, oh, look at these traditions. Look at this, for example, look at this interesting picture that I took here of a guy in the parade that I saw in Lima. So this is one of the costumes of one of the characters, one of the guys. And what's always interesting is these parades, like these people, I mean, I don't think he's drinking right now. I don't see his hands, but like they always have like cans of beer. They're always drinking as they go through these parades in public. So they're all like dancing and like wearing these massive costumes, and they're drinking like tons of Pilsen or Callao beer or whatever they have. Nature is another of the huge benefits, right, of being in Peru, because not only the variety, but just how unique it can be there. The Huacachina Oasis is one example of that, right? Going to the desert, in the middle of the desert, seeing this like lake. And yeah, it's just a really cool region, really good weather. And yeah, just a beautiful spot. Okay, there's Natalie. Gachino, see you in a few hours. Okay, safe flight. Safe flight, Natalie. Looks like she's taking off and flying into Bolivia now. Yeah, I'll see you soon. I'll be calling her a taxi when she arrives. And yeah, so mentioning, culture again, here's Natalie and I. up in, I believe this is in Chivay. Yeah, this is in Chivay. When we went up to go to Coca Canyon, it was freezing. It's so cold. It's like 3,800 meters over there. So yeah, a lot of people love that part of living in Peru, retiring, relocating there. And yeah, so I mentioned before that I had an expat who actually is now a citizen. So I guess kind of an expat now. Kevin, he's on the channel. He mentions how he thinks of living in Trujillo. So I believe, Sacha, you live in Trujillo, right? So he lives in Trujillo with his wife and their family, and he became a Peruvian citizen after, I can't remember how many years, a couple of years, 5 years of living there or something. In 2016, I think he became a citizen, like around 10 years ago. So he's been a citizen for a while. And yeah, so he mentions how it is to live in the city, and how, something that's interesting about there is the protests that happen in Lima don't actually make it up to Trujillo, is what he was mentioning. So that's definitely an interesting part of, being in a biggish city. You would think, oh, okay, well, if you're in a big city in Peru, I'm sure they have the same problems that the capital city has. And no, that's not really the case. So, even with Trujillo having its issues with crime, or at least being considered, by many as a dangerous place, there's very little effect from the protests and political stuff. And bureaucracy, he said, when he got his citizenship was he had a laundry list of things to do. You should watch this video with Kevin if you want to see his specific info. But yeah, he said that the bureaucracy was not great. It wasn't super efficient, but it wasn't terrible. For retirees, altitude can be an issue when it comes to certain cities. So, for example, when you see the rest of my videos in Cusco, you're going to realize that the city Cusco didn't have any retirees that I encountered while I was there. I tried my best to find retirees, but I believe due to altitude, when you're at 3,400 meters, that's really high. And, in terms of high elevation, I mean, people don't go to high elevation cities. They don't go to, like, sometimes people don't go to Cuenca in Ecuador. They don't go to Arequipa in Peru because of the altitude, right? 2,300 meters in Arequipa, 2006 in Cuenca, Cochabamba, 2007. So, I actually found quite a few retirees in Cochabamba compared to what I was expecting. And so that can be an issue for retirees when you're in the age of 60s, 70s. That altitude can be complicated, especially for people with lung issues. People that have a history of smoking can have a difficulty with that. So yeah, Kevin mentions a bit about living in Trujillo. Another con that's very, very obvious to me, especially after driving 1 month in Lima, was the horrendous traffic, probably the worst traffic in Latin America that I've driven, and the most unsafe I've felt on my bike in terms of traffic. Just the amount of space that they give you, like driving at high speeds on highways or anywhere, there's not enough space ever, and it's very, very scary to me. But anyways, a lot of you won't be buying cars and buying vehicles, especially in Peru. Traffic, taxis are cheap, the buses are cheap, the transport options, there's many, and yeah, not necessary at all. I mean, I've been to Peru for the years, and this is the first time I've driven, right? So I feel like my perspective has changed a little bit because of it, but overall, it's still a safe place to take taxis, take buses, and whatever. I took micros, whatever they're called, combis in Lima many times, buses many times. Especially if you don't take buses or public transport during the rush hour or the heavy times, I feel like they're pretty safe. So yeah, a lot of you seem to be either living in Peru, but how many of you that are still on would you live in Peru if you don't live there now, or would you just visit? I'm curious. We've got a couple more comments here. Looks like Carmen deleted hers. Sacha, the protests in Lima are usually bigger and more chaotic. In Trujillo, we have protests, but are in a much smaller scale and rarely turns violent. For retirees, the jungle like Tarapoto might be the best option because it's pretty safe, good weather, and cheaper prices. Land is cheaper too. So actually, I have my future story, my future chat with Andy, who he was in the Urubamba kind of walking chat. He gives a bit of information, his perspective on Iquitos. So he lived in Iquitos for, I can't remember the amount of years, 3 or 5 years, and then moved out to the Sacred Valley, to Urubamba after that. And yeah, so he has kind of an interesting perspective on living in Iquitos. And yeah, I'm not sure what you mentioned is the same as what he said. So you'll have to watch that one and let me know what you think about what he says. So yeah, for all of you that are not currently in Peru and are looking at maybe retirement, do you think Peru is a better place for retirement, or Ecuador, Colombia, Bolivia, where I am now? Yeah, I'm curious. So, yeah, it was a good chat, guys. We're getting close to the 3-hour mark. And I actually have to hit the hay, get a couple hours of sleep before Natalie flies in. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, it's always very appreciated if you do that. I have my Patreon, which has actually what I'm doing with my Patreon nowadays is I am putting my full interviews onto that instead of putting that onto my channel. So the Patreon will have something, and I'll put that also onto my my YouTube, but it will be for the members to get the full interviews, the full 1-hour interviews. Those take a lot of time, a lot of extra effort. If I pay my editor to do it, it's a lot of extra money and extra time for me as well. So I'm trying to a lot of people don't watch those extra long interviews. So I think I'm going to make those specifically for the members and for the Patreon members, because it's a lot of extra effort and not that many people watch them. Sacha says, Iquitos is the most expensive jungle city because everything needs to be shipped there. Tarapoto is much cheaper. I don't know about other jungle cities. Okay, sure. That would make sense. Carlos, in my honest opinion, Tarapoto is way better than Iquitos. Okay. Sacha, thanks for your time, Eric. I enjoyed the live. Thank you, Sacha, for showing up, everyone. If you are interested in checking out any of my Ecuador videos, you can check out my Ecuador playlist. Bolivia videos are coming up after I finish up, or at the end of these Peru videos, which are about 5 or 6 more left coming up. And yeah, we're going to call it quits tonight so I can get some Z's, catch the Z's. All right, guys. Thanks for showing up. Have a great night. And it was a good chat with all of you that were involved. Take care. See you again.